In this video, we'll look at 4 different types of Layer 2 attacks and how to mitigate them. First, we'll set up the network and the tools we'll be using for the Layer 2 attack.
Here, I'm connecting my computer to the switch using a console cable and putty. After I get into the switch, I set up the basic configurations for the switch like switch port access and VLANs. Then, I configure the computer's static IP address on the Ethernet interface. As you can see, I've already configured this beforehand. We'll use the same basic configuration for the computer and the switch for all 4 of the Layer 2 attacks. Before we can do any of the Layer 2 attacks, we have to backtrack because it provides most of the necessary tools for the attack. In this case, we will use VMware to simulate the Backtrack OS. When we start Backtrack, we have to log in the username and password. The default username is root and the default password is root backwards. After you logged in, you can start the GUI environment by issuing the command startx. After this, you should be able to access all the necessary tools for the attack. The first attack we will talk about is the CAN table overflow. In this attack, we will try to send as many MAC addresses as possible to the switch to flood the switch's CAN table. We can do this by using the command macoff. Once the switch's CAN table is flooded, users on that network that sends traffic through the switch will be vulnerable to the attacker. The switch will broadcast all the packets from the users because it does not know which port to send the packets to. This will allow the attacker to get valuable information from the users. In order to prevent this attack, we must put port security in all of the ports on the switch. On each of the port interfaces, put the command port security, which turns on the port security violation shutdown, which turns off the port if the port security is being violated, and port security MAC address sticky, which makes it so the interface does not need to dynamically relearn the MAC address when the switches restart. As you can see, after we put port security, the CAN table is not flooded anymore.
The next Layer 2 attack we will talk about is the DHCP starvation. In this attack, we must add the DHCP server to the router to our original setup. To do this, we have to put the command DHCP pool IP address subnet mask. We also have to use the default router command to set up the default gateway for all the DHCP hosts. After we configure our setup, we have to use the program Yersinia to try to flood the DHCP pool. To start Yersinia, type the command Yersinia-G in the terminal. After that, a GUI version of the Yersinia should pop up. We can start the DHCP attack by clicking on the Launch Attack button and then on the DHCP tab, click on the Sending Discovery Packets option. This will allow the attacker to flood the DHCP pool. As you can see, users on the network are unable to get an IP address from the DHCP server because the attacker already took all the addresses in the pool. To prevent this attack from happening, we can use the same command as the CAN table overflow mitigation. We would have to put the command port security violation shutdown, and port security MAC address sticky. The third Layer 2 attack we'll talk about is ARP poisoning. In this attack, we'll use the program EtherCap to broadcast false ARP packets to make the user think that I'm the router when I'm not. To do this, click on the Host tab and then scan for the users on the network. Then, click on the Man in the Middle Attack tab and then on ARP poisoning. This will allow the attacker to intercept all the traffic that users want to send through the network. To see the ARP poisoning in action, we have to use Wireshark. To do this, we have to enable Wireshark on an Ethernet interface and then filter out the ARP packets. As you can see, I have already done this. All of the ARP packets we see are from the ARP poisoning attack. If the users on the network try to send an ARP request, then the attacker's ARP packets will make the user think that the IP address is located on the attacker.
To mitigate an ARP poisoning attack, we first go to the global config mode and then type in the commands IP ARP inspection VLAN 2 and IP DHCP snooping VLAN 2. These are 2 separate commands that need to be issued on the global config mode of the switch. Now these commands enable an inspection of the ARP packets in VLAN 2 as well as enabling the DHCP snooping, which is a crucial mitigation protocol for ARP poisoning in VLAN 2. Now, after this is done, we simply go to the enable mode. We exit out of the global config mode and then type in the commands IP DHCP snooping binding, and we find now here we have to find the MAC address of the computer of the victim host. To do this, we go to the command prompt and simply type ipconfig /all to find the MAC address of the computer. Now, as we found it here, it's the MAC address of my computer is 18-C3-73-7C4-62-D1. We simply type that into the command after DHCP snooping binding. After this is done, we type the VLAN that we want to do the binding on. which is VLAN2, and then we find the IP address of the victim host that we already configured, and the interface of the of which the victim host is connected to the switch, which is at base 01 for us. Now we type expiry 10,000, which is a command for the timeout. After this is done, our poisoning should be mitigated and the network should be stabilized once again.
The last layer 2 attack we'll talk about is CDP. In this attack, we use the programmer Cine again. This time, instead of clicking on the DHCP tab, we'll stay on the CDP tab and click on the flooding the CDP table option. After that, the attacker will flood the switch with the CDP packets. If you look at the switch's CDP table, you can see that it is flooded. One way you can prevent this attacking from happening is turn off the CDP on the switch. To do this, type the no CDP enable command on the interfaces and the no CDP run command on the global config.